One of the positive consequences of remote learning, an extended period of remote learning, has been that our students and our children have been able to develop a high level of independence in terms of being able to manage themselves as learners. One of the pitfalls of this, I guess, this focus on independence is that in wanting our children to work on their own, be independent, that we may be inadvertently heightening a child's sense of isolation. I would encourage all families to really think about, I guess, developmentally where your children are at with regards to independence. Certainly our very young children, our prep 1, 2, even our year 3 children, that idea of independence, certainly being able to upload their own work, being able to work independently for a small amount of time on a task is absolutely very reasonable. But in terms of them working on their own, away from other members of the family for extended periods of time, that's where I start to become a little bit more uncomfortable with this idea of independence. And then we have that unintended consequence that children might be feeling even more isolated from the real world, from real people, from having that human contact. I know that my children in particular, they just crave having a learning partner, someone physically sitting next to them, someone to talk to their learning, talk about the challenges they're having with their learning, to float ideas, or just to have company. So I just be wary of this, this very natural and well-intentioned focus on promoting independence, while at the same time ensuring that children have that contact. And I know that's really difficult when you're juggling work commitments, but this is a time more than any other time where our children need us. They need us to be present. They need us to be there for them as their learning buddies, because their learning buddies are all outside of the home. They're in their own homes. Their teacher is in their own home, and it is very isolating. One of the natural solutions that we might think of as a community, and certainly as educators and parents, it's a very normal sort of feeling, is maybe our children would be more engaged in learning if they were online more, if they were in extended Zoom sessions, live lessons for maybe 3-4 hours a day. And I understand why we might come to that conclusion. But the reality is that particularly for our very young children, their ability to even manage themselves through a live lesson that lasts 30, 40, 50 minutes is incredibly difficult. It's not particularly engaging. It's not how they would normally learn. And certainly one of the observations I would make is, what are your children doing during that time? They might certainly be doing some learning, and they might be interacting with their teacher and peers. But one thing I'd like you to notice is how sedentary they are, how they're relying very much on their interaction through a computer for an extended period of time. We know intrinsically that this isn't healthy for our children. And so that's why this solution of having kids in Zoom sessions for hour after hour after hour within the day, I don't think it's ethical, to be completely frank. And it's not healthy for kids, and it's certainly not in their best interests. It might make managing the home environment a little bit easier, and I understand why that's important at the moment. But from a health and well-being and a learning perspective, it's not something the school will be promoting. Certainly within my own children, I observe, and I'm very happy for them to be in Zoom lessons and check-ins and those sorts of things for up to about an hour a day. Any longer than that, and they lose interest. My own daughters, they'll get up from a Zoom meeting if they get a little bit bored, or they just want to go for a wander, and I'll be like, what are you doing? Sit down and make sure you're listening to your teacher and engaging. But it's not how they learn, and to think that they might be able to do that for 2, 3, 4 hours in a day. I want to say I understand why we might think that's the solution, but it's just not. Kids need to be up and moving around. They need to be interacting with real people. And I get that that's challenging, but remember, I guess, back to term 2, where I encouraged all families to really think about their expectations. My expectations, while they've increased in terms of what we do with children in terms of their learning and well-being over this extended period of remote learning, that focus on children doing 1 or 2 things each day that they're proud of, that hasn't changed. And that won't change even when children are on site. If every child can engage in something that is meaningful, that is worthwhile every day, that remains a really good day. So please take a little bit of pressure off yourself, take a little bit of pressure off teachers. They're doing their absolute best. Their work hours continue to be incredibly long. I was talking to a teacher earlier this week, and she was saying, Now that we're doing, we've got more live interaction with students through small group activities and some live lessons. The time that they're spending still to provide feedback, to design lessons, to respond to emails, that they're working literally 7 days a week. And while I know that a lot of our teachers are prepared to do that and they're happy to do that, it does come at a personal cost. And we think of many of our teachers have children of their own. So again, I know we try and find solutions to the struggles that we're having with regards to how we're managing and supporting our children at home. But I want to assure you that everyone is working incredibly hard. We're doing our best to support children, but we also need to make sure that we're supporting the people who are the biggest influence in terms of their learning, and that is the teachers. There've been, I think, less than 10 sick days in nearly 2 terms from our teachers, which says to me that they're working through times when they're feeling personally very stressed, exhausted, overwhelmed, and that's they're doing that because they care. They care so much. So please be mindful of how that's all going. Continue to be very aware of how much time your children are spending on computers. Think about how connected they are to you as their learning buddy, and that we don't want to isolate them under the guise of it being a promotion of independence. We need human contact this time. I feel, quite isolated even in the school, as an adult, and I don't feel like my whole self until I get home and I have some contact with my family, my wife and my kids. And it's that contact that enables me to feel like I'm at my best. And it's the real human contact, not via Zoom. We do our best to maintain that via Zoom, but no amount of Zoom is going to replace that need to be with other people in the flesh. If you're really struggling again, I encourage you to reach out. Have a conversation with your teacher about how you can best manage the learning environment at home. I know it's challenging. I know it's really difficult, but just around 4 weeks to go. We're nearly there. But yeah, thank you again, everyone.